everyone. How are you doing? Yeah, yeah. This is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited about all of these series, and I'm honored to always participate. And I can't wait to talk to y'all more about the project. It's going to come, but all the projects are super like fetch. It's happening. It's really exciting. So thanks for coming to the live stream to be a part of this journey with us. Love you, mean it. I just painted my nails, so I'm not going to touch. There we go.
He really did just paint his nails. They are fresh for today's event.
That's the color. Don't judge the cuticles. There we go.
All right, next I'm going to bring in Jen Lucas, a knitting expert and managing editor of the Knitting Circle. Hi, Jen. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Thanks, Leah. Like Leah said, I'm Jen, managing editor of the Knitting Circle. I love to knit and crochet, and I'm excited to talk about all the spring projects that we're going to make. I'm super pumped.
I can't wait to get started either. We have one final instructor I would like to introduce you to first, and that is Emily Steffen, a sewing expert and National Sewing Circle instructor. Emily, hello and welcome.
Hi! I love being a part of these projects, and I'm always honored. And I'm wildly impressed that Mr. Domestic just used the word fetch in his introduction. So that's what's on my mind.
We are going to make fetch happen, I think is what's going on.
Fetch is happening. I have a shirt in my merch store that says fetch is happening. I was going to wear it, but I wasn't sure it was going to mirror right. So wait, I'm going to change. There's going to be a change. Watch out.
All right, well, before we dig into the projects that all of our instructors have kind of already started to tease and what is going to be coming your way for all of our events next week, just a quick bit of housekeeping from me. So Mr. Domestic, Jen, and Emily are just a few of the instructors that will be joining us to provide live instruction all of next week and a bundle of free springtime patterns and recipes. Every day next week, a new instructor is going to provide those step-by-step live demonstrations of easy projects that you can do along or later on your own time. And the first official day of the mini series is going to start on Monday, March 29th, and that will be at 2 p.m. Central Time. You can download the free patterns, instructions, and recipes though right now, so you can prepare for those live instructions next week. And the link you'll find in the description of this video. So Mr. Domestic, Jen, and Emily are going to show us a little more of a sneak peek at some of the projects that they will be guiding us through during the mini series. And as we get to some of that input and some of that sneak peek, I would like to remind you that there is a chat box. So if you have questions for any of our panelists today, either just general crafting questions that you would like us to ask them in general, or more specific to those sneak peeks that they start to give us, just drop a little question into the chat box. We'll get to as many as possible with our time together today. And without further ado, it's sneak peek time. So I'm going to send us back to Mr. Domestic first. Tell us a little bit about your own crafting story, but also give us a sneak peek into that specific project that we're going to see next week from you.
My crafting story began. I was a little boy growing up down south with my family, wanting to craft, not allowed to. I had to stay in the corner. And then I had all this pent up wanting to learn how to craft. And then my spouse and I adopted our child at birth almost 8 years ago, and that just changed everything in my world. And she became my muse and my inspiration. And then these hobbies, which are now a job for me, like the quality far exceeded anything that I would ever be able to accomplish, because she was that inspiration. And it was like all of that love that you can pour into handmade things. And then me, I'm a big old personality. So it's like, if I get excited about something, I want to make everyone else excited about it. And then ta-da, 5 years later, Mr. Domestic, it's a thing. Let's make it happen. And also, I'm not done. Look, I wasn't kidding. Look. That just it's happening, folks. 2021 is the year fetch is happening. So
if we all band together, we can make it work. I know.
Fetch, just throw it in there. You can say fetch and fetch-tastic. Both are great ways to use it. This is part of my Falcor that I'm making. So let's put this away.
All right. So while you're looking at your crafting, what are we doing next week? I see it right there.
This right here, I made a little basket. So I'm not going to teach you how to weave because that would take way longer than the time. But this is a little basket that I made out of one of my weaves because people are always asking. Then I just slice it up and I made it a sturdy basket. the construction, I had this like thought, because I was like, fabric baskets are never sturdy. So even if you use like Basel or like soft and stable, it's bulky and it's never like ting ting snatch. So I was like, hey, let's put some little filter pockets on the inside, because I had just made some masks. So I was like, let me put some little pockets in here. And then I cut this off of my box, and then I just insert this in, and then I can take them out and they're like super duper sturdy. And I was like, look at what I came up with. I did a thing that's pretty like novel. And now it's like my favorite basket, because it like holds the shape and it's like super cute. So you just go in there, and then with the binding, it's all hidden so you don't see it. It's really a great design. I can't wait to teach all of you.
Yes, that's
It'll be
coming
fun.
next week. I believe on Friday, that
Yes.
is going to be our project. Yes?
Yep, it is. It is. I'm really excited about it. And it's the perfect time for a basket, right? Like if you don't do the weave, like, I mean, it's like a 20-minute project. I think in my world, in my head, it is at least a 20-minute project. We'll find out on that Friday, won't we?
And we'll do it together live. All right, I'm going to bring us next to Emily. Emily, we would love to hear a little bit of your crafting story and then segue right into a sneak peek of what you're bringing to us next week.
Yeah, I probably have a crafting story similar to so many people, that I grew up in the world of zippers and sewing machines and fabric and homemade pajama pants for sleepovers all the time. And it was amazing, but it inspired me to bring, as I had kids, to bring this love, this joy of color. Color is a big thing for me, this joy of color and making things and having it come from your brain to your hands. And I'm bringing it to my own kids, which is amazing. And next week, this actually segues into what I'm making, because I make a lot of stuff for my kids or inspired by my kids. And I have a 5-year-old daughter right now, and she is like, I don't know about you, but kids like have collections all the time, and I'm sick of the collections. So I make zipper pouches all the time for her to put the various collections in. And right now she's aspiring to be a bunny doctor when she grows up. So hence the carrot zipper pouch. So it's just a simple little, kind of kitschy Easter little zipper pouch. And you probably could hide these around your house if you really wanted to be ambitious and make a lot of them. But a lined little zipper pouch, you can make it in any color you want. And you can hide all the little collections that any little child seems to need in their bedroom in one of these. It's great.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And a very specific life goal to be a bunny doctor.
I know. I will see how that goes. She doesn't really know what the word veterinarian means, so bunny doctor it is. That's fine.
It works for now.
It does.
I see some questions popping in. Keep those questions coming. I'm going to start jumping into the chat box after we get our last sneak peek, and this is coming to us from Jen. So Jen, I'm going to have you do the same thing. Give us a little brief intro into what brought you to crafting, and then slide into the project that we'll be doing with you next week.
Great. So I always was a little bit crafty growing up, didn't really get into knitting and crochet until after college. It was one of those things, I was out of college working, and you're kind of like, what do I do now? And so my friends bought me a booklet for my birthday called Learn to Knit in Just One Day. And I taught myself how to knit out of that booklet, and eventually picked up crochet too. Now I'm starting to dabble into sewing, and it just goes on and on from there. And so I'll pretty much try any craft. And then as far as what I'll be making next week, I am making these cute little knitted tulips. And so the ones I've made are flat. I just love spring flowers. And so I just really wanted to make something that, was a spring flower. So I've made these flat, but you could stick wire in these and really turn them into 3-dimensional flowers. And they're actually very easy to make. You can really make one probably in an hour or so. And they're great for all your leftover yarn.
Perfect. Ooh, just as the flowers are coming up, we'll be making some of our own too. I love it. All right, I'm actually going to send our first question right back to you, Jen. Jennifer is asking if these are basic crafts that anyone can do, and what would you describe as the difficulty level? So I'll send that to you first, Jen.
Yeah, I would say for my project, I would say it's an adventurous beginner. If you've never picked up knitting needles before, could you do it? sure. But you might find a little bit of the techniques a little bit tricky. But the good thing is that for all of the projects is that we have PDFs that you can download. And for mine, there's tons of photos that will show you step by step exactly what you need to do, where the needle needs to go. But I would rate my project at adventurous beginner. So if you've knit 1 or 2 projects before, you could definitely do these.
Great. And as a reminder, you can always go back and rewatch these events as well. So if this is something that you are more beginner level and maybe it's just moving a little too fast for you to keep up with right as we're doing the project live, you can always come back and rewatch and kind of take your time with it, which is one of my favorite things about these events is that you can go back and revisit them. I'm going to send the same question over to you, Mr. Domestic. What would you rate difficulty-wise for your project?
Oh, well, it's definitely not basic, but it is, I mean, really, if you've never made a bag, this would be a good gateway bag for you to like get into the joy of bag making. It's really not a lot of seams. It looks way more complicated than this. I would say if you can thread your machine, I'll be able to talk you through it, like honestly. So maybe I'm a little too confident in my skills, but look at me, I'm talking to you and I'm at Craftsy, look at this. So it's like clearly I know some stuff. So yeah, just bring it. Yeah, we'll do it.
And I think this question is also for you, Mr. Domestic. This is coming from Jay. I believe it's about your fabric. Where did you get that fabulous material? I so want it.
Which one, this?
I believe that is what it's referring to. Jay, if you're out there and you have something more specific, drop that in the chat box, but we'll find out about
this. This is a thing. See, it's a weave. I wove it. So it was a woven panel. I have this as a pattern, but it's fabric weaving that I sliced in quarters and then I turned into a basket. So I made it. I made this textile. These were all solids. That was the answer to your question.
Perfect. Well, Jay, like I said, if you had a more specific question, drop it in, but I'm pretty sure that that was the fabric that Jay was referring to. So little weave, little something that I know Mr. Domestic features quite a lot, is his weaving. So I'm going to finish up a difficulty question to you, Emily, and then I've got another question I'm going to send to you once you're done explaining where you think your project falls.
I feel like people are constantly, when you say like zipper pouch or you talk about putting a zipper in a garment or a shirt or something, it feels like the hardest thing on the planet to do. And it's super duper not. And especially with something like this, that's just a simple shape. And honestly, you could make it more into like oval if you really wanted to. It could be an odd shaped carrot if the shape is concerning, but truthfully, I feel like zippers are an easy thing that people feel are really complicated. So I'm going to say it's a beginner project and I will have you putting zippers in easily, and you'll be confident by the end of our time.
Yes, yes, yes. I have seen Emily coach people through zipper application. And so it is a really great entry point. I can say that for sure. And this is a great time to ask you, Emily. Michelle is wondering, what is the best way to learn to sew? So going way back to basics, what would you recommend as a starting point, Emily?
So the cool thing that I love about sewing, and I'm sure so many people could back this, is it's one of those instant crafts, right? Like you put your fabric through your machine and you hit your foot feed and you go zzz, and all of a sudden you have a seam and you're sewing two things together. So if you find something that you're drawn to, let's say it's a simple pajama pants pattern, or like a really easy kind of stuffy or softy, or something that's maybe a little bit simpler of a shape, I would say have at it. Like just get going. It's one of those crafts you can just start and go. And you know what? If you screw up, I mean, maybe not cutting, but if you screw up, you rip your seams apart and you try again. It's a very accessible thing. As long as you thread your machine correctly, it's an accessible thing. And I say, just go, which is maybe not the best thing, but just go, just try it and sew some things together, make yourself some fabric, and then tune into Matthew's thing next Friday and make your fabric into your basket.
There you go.
Ta-da! Look at that.
Tying everything together. And Jay did pop in. He was talking about that woven fabric. So that was the perfect answer. Exactly what we were looking for there. We have a couple questions about sewing machines coming in. So I'm going to pop this one over to Mr. Domestic. You talked about using your sewing machine. Vicky wants to know, what do I need to get my sewing machine ready for these projects? It has been dormant for 4 years.
Yeah, well, take it out of the closet and then plug it in and then make sure that it works. That's the first thing, because like I'm saying this kind of jokingly, but don't front like there have been times that I've gone in like thought I was ready for something and I showed up 10 minutes before and I'm like, oh my gosh, stuff isn't working. So for real, do that. And then like thread it and like put a bobbin in and then have your supplies. Like you're going to be able to get PDFs of all of the things. So make sure that you have the supplies ready. So that would include like some of this jazz, but I have workarounds for it. And you need a zipper and a positive attitude and a go get 'em attitude. And then we can accomplish anything together. That's what I would say you need. Really just make sure it works.
All right. So go ahead and plug it in, give it a try sometime before we go live next week, and hopefully it'll be working really well for you. I'm actually going to toss this one really quick to all three of you. This is just a request for a recommendation from Francis. Can you recommend a sewing machine for a newbie? So Emily, I'm going to start with a recommendation if you have one.
I feel like there's oftentimes a lot of people know, hey, I have a grandma or a sister or a friend or a neighbor that has a sewing machine. Give it a try, plug it in. Like Mr. Domestic said, grab it from them. People want to get rid of it or they want to sell it to you for pretty cheap. Plug it in. That's a good place to start, is just ask your friends and family if they have one sitting in their closet, because a lot of people do. But I'm brand specific. I'm a huge, gigantic fan of Janome. I think they make incredible entry-level machines and incredible, amazing people machines. They're just great. So I know that there's a lot of big box stores that carry very simple entry-level machines, and just do a little bit of research, figure out maybe what you feel like you're drawn to making, and see if there's any features of a specific machine that you would love, whether it's like you want 100 million stitches or you want 40 different feet to come with it. Maybe just kind of narrow those options down. But honestly, ask your friends and family first, because somebody's bound to have one in their closet.
All right, I'm going to send this to you as well, Jen. I know that your project next week is knitting, but if you have any thoughts on a sewing machine that you could recommend for a beginner to pick up or look into, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, just really going off what Emily said, you know, I am just getting into sewing. I personally purchased a machine from a big box craft store when it was on sale, and it sat in my closet for 2 years until last year when I decided to finally get it out and try it. But part of how I decided to buy that particular machine from the big box craft store was, like Emily said, I have friends that have been sewing and quilting for a long time. So I just talked to them about like, okay, I am going to buy a brand new machine, but like, what would be a good option? What do you think I need? Because I came into it knowing nothing about sewing. I never had sewn anything until last year. And so, yeah, just really talk to your friends, see what they like. We were even talking before we went live about how you can find machines really inexpensive on, you know, like a Facebook marketplace, something like that. You know, so you can actually get into sewing for pretty cheap, because like Emily said, someone might have a sewing machine in their closet they're not using, or maybe you can find someone selling one for $20 or $40, and, you know, you can give it a try and see if you even like it.
Perfect. And I'm going to finish sending this over to you, Mr. Domestic. I know that you've got personal names for your sewing machines, but what would you recommend for someone that wants to add the first one to their collection?
Yeah, I'm loyal. I'm a Janome loyalist. I've recently started partnering with them a year ago as I started to align myself with companies that share personal and business values with me, and they're definitely like top notch when it comes to that. So like if you're into me, you should be into them. But really just do you too. But the thing that I would advise that's different is that whenever you're looking for a new sewing machine, because as with any craft, the dollar amounts of things could add up, that you do risk the chance of going into like a Southwest Airlines kind of situation whenever people used to like fly, how it's like you don't pay for the baggage, you don't pay for this when you get your ticket, and then you have to pay extra. That a lot of the lower models, check to see how much their accessories are as well, because some of them, the accessories are like, why? Like, no, thank you, I'm not interested in that, and they cost more than some of the sewing machines. So I would just check like check to see, compare the prices of all of the walking foots, because that's a foot you're going to need, and then that will give you a base reference for like what everything else will cost. So that would be my advice for that. Pro tip, Mr. Domestic.
Right, always check the accessory price. Ooh, Elizabeth has a question that I can actually answer. So I'm going to hop in here. Elizabeth is wondering how long these mini sessions, these series are next week. And Elizabeth and anybody else that's curious, they are always less than 1 hour. So we typically do run up pretty close to that hour marker. And we always have a lot of fun, as you can see just in this little teaser that we have as well. But I highly encourage you, even if you can't pop on right at the beginning, jump in for just a little bit of the live. We have a really active chat box all the time. There's a lot of people that are sharing and crowdsourcing their own ideas. And then of course you can always go back and watch the entire thing later if you miss any section of it or want to revisit it. So that is the answer, an hour or less for each of them. And sometimes we do the Macarena.
I'm like, the camera's on me. What am I supposed to do? I'm entertained.
So you buzz bumblebees.
Hi, everybody.
We'll always find a way to keep you engaged for the entire hour of the mini series. I am going to jump into a different question here. I'm actually going to start with Emily on this one. Emily, you've got a fantastic background behind you, and I know I mentioned it right when we started to log on. If you could talk a little bit about what's going on back there, what inspired you, how you've been doing that work behind you, because I know that is your personal work.
Mm-hmm. So this is my daughter's bedroom, and I'm you can probably see the paint in my hands. Like literally, I was like, oh, I need to log into the thing because I was painting this right before we did this. But I find that for me with making and crafting, I love to just spread my feelers, my fingers, my breadth wide. So I draw and doodle a lot, and this started as a drawing, then it became oh, Mom, I want that on my wall. And I thought, well, what the heck? I might as well paint some flowers on her wall. And now there's this talk of having this bunny with this that she needs on her wall also. So we'll probably have to add a bunny in the mix. But I was just talking before we went on live that this is such a fun time of the year to be doing these sort of things to spruce up your house and to like add color and these little moments of joy, because it's rainy here in the Midwest. So why not paint my walls? That's the motto right now that's happening. So yeah, I doodled it and then it turned into a painting.
Awesome. And it's making me personally want to do my own version of this, although I will have to practice. I'll probably have to practice and paint over a few times before I can get
That's okay.
All right, I'm going to send the next question over to Jen. Jen, what motivates you or inspires you when it comes to crafting? I know that you're knitting more than just clothing or just little items and things. What inspires you to pick your next project?
I get my inspiration kind of from everywhere, really. I mean, truly, I find I'm the kind of crafter right now when it comes to my knitting and crochet that if I see something on the internet that somebody else has made and I think that it's beautiful, I am very easily influenced. So we were talking earlier, just today, I was watching a crochet video and the instructor had on a beautiful sweater. And I'm like, now I must crochet that sweater, and went off and bought the pattern and the yarn for it. So I really do get my inspiration from everywhere. When I'm designing pieces, I love looking through stitch dictionaries and stuff and just picking the things that I know I like to knit and crochet. I really love to do lace. So I do get it from everywhere. I am not one that necessarily will look at a tree and then try to knit a shawl that looks like the tree. But really, I get a lot of inspiration from Instagram, Facebook, my friends. If they're knitting something, I want to knit it too.
Perfect. We'll come back to you with a question in just a moment, Jen, but we have a few questions that have come in for Mr. Domestic about that woven material. So it's a big hit. We have a couple people that are curious if it can be purchased, and a lot of people that are curious about learning how to do this themselves and want to know how you learned how to do it.
Hello. So yeah, it's fabric weaving. It's one of the big things that I'm known for the most. I love it. I'm obsessed with it ever since I started doing it 5 years ago. It's still my main craft that I go back to because I really, really appreciate the meditative quality of just grabbing some fabric, jamming out to some Enya or Billie Eilish and just going to town weaving. It just really, it does a lot of stuff with my heart. And so that's what draws me to it and why I love it. Where you can learn it. I learned from some books, but now like I'm like the global expert on it or whatever. So like check me out. You can check out my Etsy store. I have a course for it over on my online school. They have courses at Craftsy. Really, it's the best. I've got tutorials everywhere. But like if you want to know, I'm the person. Like I'm that person. So really it's a lot of fun. And one thing is like now, honestly, because of fabric weaving, that's why I'm like a quilting influencer, is because by doing fabric weaving, it allowed me to play with fabric in a condensed amount of time, because the idea of creating a quilt with like 16, 20 different fabrics scared the like all of me. So I just stuck to apparel. But by doing that, I was able to throw 20 different fabrics in there. And if one felt weird, I would yank it out and put it back in. So it's really, it's a great craft to start. You don't need any experience. And if you want to learn, stick with me.
That's right. If you follow Mr. Domestic on social media, you'll see a lot of the weaving. I know. I really enjoy watching it. I haven't tried it myself yet, but as meditative as he is describing it is to do, it feels that way to watch it come together. So very exciting stuff. Check out those classes that he mentioned if that's something you're interested in. Jen, I promised I'd come back to you. Susan has a really great question, and I'm sure she's not the only one. Can you teach a lefty?
So yes, lefties absolutely can learn how to knit. So there's a couple of things. Is that so? There is sort of one main way that everybody knits to make the knit stitches, purl stitches, etc. And you can either do that with the yarn in your right hand using the English method, or with the yarn in your left hand using the continental method. So many left-handed people knit the exact same way as everybody else. They just have the yarn in their left hand. And even right-handed people will often carry the yarn in their left hand. It's actually a little bit of a quicker way to knit. So that is one way. There are people who knit truly left-handed, as in they knit completely the mirror image of somebody who's, sort of knitting the conventional way. There is a Craftsy class on left-handed knitting, and we will be bringing some left-handed knitting videos to the Knitting Circle in the future. But yes, if you're left-handed, you can absolutely learn how to knit. I would recommend that you just try the continental method. So you still would be knitting the standard way, but you would have the yarn in your left hand, because if you try truly left-handed knitting, you have to then reverse the entire pattern as you're going, and it's just a little bit more brain power. Definitely doable, but I would try the continental method for sure.
All right, I'm going to slide in just a couple comments that have come in, and a reminder, if you have another question for any of our instructors that you would like to get in this little preview session that we have right now, now is the time. We are getting close to our wrap up, so just a few more questions that we'll get to. But first, to all of our panelists, Jay is saying thank you to each of you. You have begun to inspire me. Lots of excitement about all of your projects for next week, and specifically Kathleen thinks the mural behind you would make a great fabric pattern, Emily. So lots of inspiration happening here today. All right, I'm pulling our next question. I'm going to go right down the line. So all three of you are going to get this next question, and it is a little more general. How would you encourage others who might be a little hesitant, maybe worried about a barrier to entry, about engaging in crafting and DIY? What would you say to encourage somebody to just jump in and try it? And let's go to Emily first.
Well, I am a doer before I'm a thinker, so it's easy for me to say this, to just jump in and try it. But if it feels intimidating, if you're feeling like you're overwhelmed with maybe like the supplies or the idea or the technique behind it, start small. Just start something really small. Like let's say it's sewing and you want to figure out how to sew. Start by just contacting somebody about a sewing machine, whether it's a dealer or a friend or somebody on Facebook Marketplace and just start small and then work your way up. Because I guarantee that the rabbit hole of crafting, you will be in it very soon. We all are. So just kind of dip your foot in, you're bound to jump in and end up in a tidal wave of the love that we all have for the same thing, I think.
We were just talking about that before we went live, about how easy it is to just swirl, and before you know it, you're in this crafting world. All right, Jen, how about you? What would you say to encourage people to dive in and just give it a try?
Yeah, I think you just have to seriously just go for it. As far as knitting and crochet goes, with knitting, it's literally just sticks and string. With crochet, it's hook and a hook and string. So if you mess it up, you mess it up. You rip it out, you start over. I feel like with knitting and with crochet that you can get started in the hobby for very cheaply. You don't have to put a lot of money in to get started. You can find great yarns at big box craft stores. You can get all the supplies you need there. And there's tons of ways that you can learn how to do these crafts, no matter what craft it is, whether, you're looking at classes on Craftsy or you're visiting some of the other sites to find free videos. There's so many different ways that you can learn how to do any of these crafts now. So you just have to jump in and go for it. And just remember, with any of them, if you mess it up, big deal. We all of us here, we all messed it up when we first got started. So, that's just part of the process. And honestly, it ends up being kind of part of the fun too.
And then just see what happens.
Exactly.
All right, Mr. Domestic, how about you? What could you say to encourage somebody to get past that initial barrier and just get started?
I will just get over it. Like, come and play with us, basically. But honestly, like the best, most unintended piece of awesomeness that I've gotten from this whole journey is the wonderful, beautiful, giving community that's online. That's where I get all my inspiration. Like, people ask, am I self-taught? I don't know. I consider myself community taught, because through the internet, if I see something and I have a question and I want to learn, I can reach out to that person and ask. And like, that's just what I always do. Like, you follow people you love, they come up with a pattern you like, then you make it. And like me, I have a Facebook group. I think there's like 13,000 in it. And it's an inclusive, welcoming community of all different skill sets, all different crafts. And it's like, anytime people ask me a question I don't know, I'm like, pop over there, ask them a question. And it's like, there's so much community out here. Like, regardless of what your flavor is, you can definitely find it. And then maybe just join a community and be a little wallflower for a little bit. That's totally fine. And then start asking questions, get to know, and once you're confident, and then start to share. And then you'll be hooked, like, for real. The community is the best part of all of this is that, and it's really wonderful to be a part of.
Absolutely. I love that wallflower. Be a wallflower for a little bit. I'm sure you will have the itch before you know it to just dive in and try some of these projects. Ooh, okay. I have a specific question and then I have a fun one. So we're going to go specific first. And this one I'm going to send to Jen, and then I'm going to give a little bit of my own flavor at the end as a reminder for everybody watching. So Jen, what do you need specifically needle wise for your project? Cable needles, straight or double pointed? What are we looking at for next week?
So for my project, you really can use any kind of needle that you want. Well, that's not true. That's actually a lie. So you can use a circular needle or a double point. There is part of it that's worked flat back and forth. So if you just want a standard straight needle, you can use that for part of it, but you are going to need something to be knitting in the round for part of the project. I use double pointed needles just because that's what I had. But yeah, that's all you're going to need. And I am using a worsted weight yarn for my project. So you're going to need like a size 7 to 8, but really for my project, you can make it in any weight of yarn that you want. So you just really need the needle size that's appropriate for the yarn that you're using.
Okay, great. And I'm going to jump into, and not just for Jen's project, this is for all of the projects. There is a link in the description that is going to have a bundle of the free springtime patterns and recipes, and the information that you need for next week is all going to be there for you. So you can take a peek ahead of time and look at that, or you can log in the same day and just see kind of what you are going to need available to you for the day's project as we go through Monday through Friday next week. So if you have questions about anything else that's more specific, just take a look at that bundle and you'll have an idea of what you will need to have at the ready for next week's projects. Here's a fun question that's going to circle us all the way back to the very beginning. Jan is curious what the story is behind the fetch saying. So, Mr. Domestic, do you want to let us know a little bit about fetch?
Oh my God. I mean, today's Wednesday and I can't believe I'm not wearing pink. This would have been perfect. I should have gone to get my shirt. But like, okay, one of the all-time American classic movies ever, Mean Girls, right? So Gretchen was trying to make fetch happen and she was one of the mean girls. And then Regina was all like, Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not happening. And she was so mean to her. And then I just decided in 2020, last year, I was really trying to make it happen. So I would throw it in there. Mainly this is an occurrence because the older I get, the less I remember words that I have, and then other words pop up and I make them up. So I was like, you know what? Why not? Anything can happen. We've learned 2020. So 2021, fetch is happening. I don't care what Regina George says. I'm Team Gretchen. Fetch is happening. So use it as much as you can. That's fetch. You're fetch. Oh my gosh, fetch. Fetch. Like that. Just do it. Let's do it together.
Yes.
Come on, let's do it.
Starting a revolution.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to send one more question to all of our instructors before we're going to say farewell for now, and we'll see you all next week. So to send us all on our way, for each instructor, I am curious to know, what is the feeling you get when you finish a project? How does that feel? Do you like looking at it, touching it, gifting it? What is it that makes that finished project so satisfying for you? And we're on Mr. Domestic, so I'll send it to you first.
Oh, the feeling. I don't know that it's a good feeling. Like I get sad, honestly. Your face is there, so you have to pretend like you're mouthing what I'm saying. Let's play that game. Go. Oh no. No, honestly, I mean, I said I get sad. It's like the end of a theater run production. If you acted, it's for me, I'm very much about having a joyful experience. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. Like the product is just it's like an end result really, but it's like the entire time was fun. So when I get closer to the ending, for the most part, then they'll go on a stack, because there's something unconscious about me not wanting to end it, because then it's like I feel like that joy is going to be gone. So that's why I end up having like 50 works in progress all around my room. So talk to me in December. That's when I finish my work in progresses. So right now I'm just all about the joy.
Okay, fair enough. We'll check back in a little bit later in the year. All right, how about you, Jen? What do you think about that final feeling?
For a lot of my projects, when I'm done, usually I just feel like happy that I finished whatever I started. And I'll be honest, sometimes I'm the kind of knitter and crocheter that a little bit, as I'm coming to the end of the project, like part of my excitement and joy of being done is that I know I'm going to start something new and different. And so for me, it's like, I love the process of knitting and crocheting, and I love having the finished thing. And I feel like proud that I made it. But for me, part of it is like when I'm coming to the end, I start to like almost get a little bit more excited that I get to start something new, opposed to like the excitement of finishing the thing that I'm working on. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. All right, and for our last little take on finishing a project, Emily, how do you feel about finishing?
I'm similar to Jen, where I'm a really good starter and not always a good finisher. Like with books, with dishes, with laundry, all the things, I'm good at starting them, but not finishing them. Same with projects. But for instance, this project, like this mural, this is a good example. As I was painting it, I, of course, am thinking, oh, next time I could do this colorway, or what if I did this different flower, or what if I painted this flower a different way? So I actually don't finish because I'm already usually on to the next thing. So I have a lot of unfinished things around our house, but I've learned to embrace it because it is part of the process. And I totally see making and crafting as like the stepping stone. Like, would I get to this mural if I didn't doodle the one before that, or the thing on the napkin at the restaurant before that, or it's sort of this like rabbit trail of thoughts. So I'm cool with it, but I'm a good starter, not always a good finisher, but I'm thrilled when I'm done.
Oh my goodness, there's some people in the chat box that are really responding to all of your stories about finishing projects. We have Carrie that is saying, so glad you have 50 things on the go. That must explain it. Yes, must explain my UFOs. And then Sonia is talking about the feeling of pride that she gets to finish her first quilt. So great to meet all of you. There are so many people in the chat box looking forward to next week. I'm going to give each of you a moment to say a quick farewell and final thought before I take over with a little bit of housekeeping to send us on our way. So first, Emily, we're on you. Any final thoughts, anything to look forward to specifically that you want to shout out for next week?
I am just excited to teach zippers next week. I feel like spring projects are always so fun because we can get at some of these ideas and thoughts we have as things are blooming outside. It's going to be a good week next week. I'm thrilled to tune into the rest of them.
Perfect. How about you, Jen? What would you like to say farewell with today?
Just that, even if you're a new knitter, don't be afraid to give the project, My Little Tulip, a try. Honestly, this was the first flower I ever knit. I've been wanting to make one for years and I finally did it. And really, it's not that hard. And I can't wait to show you how to do it.
All right. And Mr. Domestic, any farewell words from you? Something to look forward to for next week?
Yeah, I mean, this is just super rad. And it's like, you hit the nail on the head with that. Like, this is an opportunity to be immersed in 5 different techniques and medium, and they're all approachable to try. Like, I consider myself polycraftual because I do all of the crafts, that this is an opportunity to just experience different things. So like, why not give it a go? I'm definitely going to try the tulips, which petrifies me, but that means I have to do it. So come be scared with me.
Oh my goodness, I cannot wait myself. I will be with you for all 5 events next week. And before I let you go for today, just a couple reminders so that you can keep everything in mind for joining us next week for our series. So it starts, of course, on Monday, March 29th at 2 p.m. Central Time. That will be our first live demonstration of the mini series, and you'll want to check back every day for new projects. Make sure that you download your free patterns, instructions, and recipes. You can start right now. You can prepare for that live instruction next week by finding the link in the description. You can also find the entire mini-series schedule in the description. We'll be here every single day at 2 p.m. Central. There's a carrot zipper pouch on Monday with Emily that we've already talked about. We have a tulip block pillow with Ashley. That's going to be on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the knitted spring tulips that Jen was giving you a little sneak peek for. On Thursday, we'll be baking with Colette. It's an Italian braided sweetbread. And on Friday, we will be finishing off the week with the spring basket with Mr. Domestic. So with that in mind, we hope to see you for each and every one of those. My name is Leah. I will be moderating all of the events as they come on behalf of the entire team. Thanks for joining us